Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Campus to Career program, where we are featuring the criminal law career community. My name is Joanne Burnett, and I am one of the co-chairs of Campus to Career, and I am super delighted that you all are here today. We have a fantastic program with a variety of practitioners in the criminal law space who you will meet in just a few moments. I'm going to be sharing their bios in the chat once we get started, and we will have time for questions and answers. We have a very ambitious agenda today. We have a lot of great panelists, so feel free to put your questions in the chat if you're joining us via Zoom, or if you're in the Man Lounge. Hello, Man Lounge. We're glad you're here. There will be someone there who will be able to make sure that your question gets asked at the time. So I am going to turn it over now after I thank our sponsors, which is very important. I want to thank our Campus to Career sponsors, Baker McKenzie, Holland and Knight, and Quarles and Brady for their support of Campus to Career. They've been fantastic partners, and we are super grateful for them. I'm also super grateful for Professor Flowers, who is also one of the co-chairs of the Campus to Career Committee, and she has been a fantastic partner in this whole process for many years, and so I'm grateful to her. And now I will turn it over to you, Professor Flowers. Thank you so much.
And Joanne, just before I do, all of the speakers were more than willing to put their emails in the chat room and to encourage people to reach out to them and talk to them directly about the different options and opportunities in crim law. So if that's on their resume, that might be fine. If it's not, they can all do that. All right, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I am so excited. This panel is a group of friends and colleagues and former students. And so it is very exciting to be here with them and with all of you, either online or in the room with me. So I want to just start with having them each one just briefly introduce themselves and tell you what role they play in the criminal justice system. So let's see, I guess, Brandon, you're the first one up there on my screen. So you want to introduce yourself and just tell us what you currently do, and then we'll get to how you got there.
Of course. So my name is Brandon Breslow. I'm a criminal defense attorney at Kynes, Markman, and Fellman in Tampa, primarily doing white collar criminal defense and defense in federal court. I also do some plaintiff side civil appeals as well as criminal appeals.
So Brandon does some appeals, if that's something that's of interest to people. So that'll be fun. And please, if I say this wrong, please correct me. Ngozi, was I close?
That was very good. It's Ngozi Achelano. I always know when my name's coming up. I am an attorney and assistant regional counsel at Regional Counsel's office in Clearwater. I'm the Sixth Circuit chief. So I supervise the Clearwater office and the two Pasco County offices, one in Dade City and one in Newport Richey. We handle a variety of cases. We represent indigent clients.
Right. Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan Eyes. I am an assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Texas in Brownsville. And I pretty much handle the prosecution of any criminal case in federal court. We get a lot of narcotics and human trafficking and immigration cases.
Right. Lee Perlman.
Yeah, hi, my name is Lee Perlman. I am a partner at the law firm of Dedman Perlman. We specialize in criminal defense work as well as personal injury and estate planning. I have been doing that for approximately 11 years. I was a former state attorney in Pinellas County as well. We also do some criminal appellate work also, but not as much as Brandon.
And Caitlin?
Hi, I'm Caitlin Johnston. I'm an assistant state attorney in Jacksonville, the 4th Judicial Circuit. I am a felony division chief and a member of our homicide unit.
And of interest, Caitlin had to take a break today from a homicide trial to be with us. So thank you for talking your judge into allowing you to be here with us for a few minutes. So thank you very much. So I think what would be fun now is to kind of hear how you guys got to where you are. Because sometimes it's really interesting to see kind of the pathway to your positions. And I know that they're not always as direct. I know mine certainly wasn't as direct to be where I am today. So Lee, let's start with you. How did you get here? How did you get to criminal defense work?
I always wanted to do criminal law. When I was at Stetson, I did trial team and ADR, and I interned with Judge Horrocks in the 6th Judicial Circuit and the state attorney's office after that internship. So I got a job at the state after that, which is my whole objective. I did terribly academically, but I did really well on the team. So it also kind of forced me into a certain route, but it's what I wanted, so that works. I did 3 years as state attorney. I did 88 jury trials in those 3 years, criminal jury trials. So that kind of set me on the path. I was recruited out of the state attorney's office by an attorney named Kevin Hazlett, and he's a partner of a big law firm in the area, very good law firm. And after a year of that, I was paid a certain amount and I did a lot of work, and I felt I didn't want to keep making that amount of money for the work that I was doing. So I went out and started my own firm. So that was 4 years into my practice, and I have slowly and steadily bled, cried, just dug through and built it up. And we have 9 lawyers now. And, the love and desire to be in a courtroom, to be a trial lawyer and to advocate, and the game of it all, right? Like I love that. And that's what kind of pushed me in the direction that I went in. And I've never really wanted to do anything else. I do personal injury trials as well. So our firm is a larger percentage PI, but I oversee the criminal. And again, it's just, if you love that, if you want to be in trial, criminal is the best opportunity. There's no other area of practice that will get as many trials or the ability to try as many cases.
Caitlin, tell us how you ended up in Jacksonville.
I met the love of my life at O'Malley's. That's how I wound up in Jacksonville. But I graduated from Stetson in 2010, couldn't get a job at the state attorney's office, didn't have a CLI, and wound up working for DCF, Children's Legal Services, down in Sarasota. Definitely a white hat job, really felt good about the work that I was doing. But after 3 years of doing that, I was begging Bobby to find me a place at a state attorney's office anywhere. Also during that time, I met my husband, who's also a Stetson Law grad, but he was a few years behind me. We really did meet at O'Malley's. And he's from Jacksonville. So I came up with him and we both interviewed together, and we still work together and carpool to work every day.
And they're still very much in love, and in love with their their twins, obviously 2 of them. So I want to note 2 things that you've been told so far, just to think about, and we can come back to them. But Lee, when he was here, did both trial team and ADR, right? So it can be done. And probably those were some things that really directed him into the path that he's at. With regard to Caitlin, I just want to point out something that she said that I want you to hear. She did not go through a clinic, which meant that she had a much more difficult time finding a job in criminal law than she might have had she got that clinic experience. What she said is she didn't have a CLI, which is Certified Legal Intern, which makes it a lot easier for prosecutors' offices and public defenders' offices to hire you. So something to kind of put in the back of your head in that respect.
Bobby, to jump on that real quick, I've had probably 40 interns over the last 11 years of my own practice. The ones who listen to me and do the internship, either the public defender or state attorney internship, I think all of them have had a job. The ones who ignore my advice and don't, it's 50-50. It might even be worse than that on actual placement with one of those offices.
Yeah, so certainly something we will come back to, but we want to be thinking about that, because part of this program that we really feel strongly about is helping you understand what tools you need to get in law school to make this career work. So Brandon, talk to us, man.
So my journey to being a criminal defense attorney started at Stetson in a meeting with Ellen Podgore for the honors program. And from there, it just kind of took off. I was going to be a prosecutor. I went to Stetson with the intent of being a prosecutor. And then right before my second year, we had a deep conversation about what it meant for ineffective assistance of counsel claims to be brought. And that led to my own research on it and the clerkship with my firm now, Kynes Markman and Fellman, which I got through being in what I consider being in the right place at the right time. I met my boss at a Federal Bar Association meeting, and we started talking about the research I was doing with Ellen Podgore as part of the honors program, and just varying experiences I had as a judicial intern through Stetson's judicial internship program at the federal courthouse. And I worked here for the summer, and I continued that work on, and then I was offered a job here after law school. In between that, like Lee and Caitlin mentioned, I did the public defender clinic as well at Stetson over at the 6th Judicial Circuit in state court. So that was wonderful to get that trial experience. I would not have imagined that I'd be able to start my career having done, I think 2 or 3 jury trials under my belt as second chair with the Public Defender's Office, which is amazing over in Pinellas, just truly incredible. And they teach you a lot. So when that was done and I graduated, I was here for about 4 years, and then I took a break to go and clerk at the federal courthouse in Gainesville. And I loved criminal law. I did it, but I wanted to see the other side of it from the judge's perspective. And I wanted to see what other experience was out there. And when I finished that clerkship, I can credit this to Joanne Courageous-Burnett, who is a good friend and told me that life is a spiral staircase. And so sometimes you cover the same ground, but you do it from different perspectives. And I decided to come back to this firm and continue practicing criminal law, knowing and having seen now both sides of it, and obviously not having been a prosecutor, but seeing it from the judge's perspective in federal court, taking that experience and coming back to it.
So just a couple of things I want to highlight from Brandon, that he wouldn't have been where he is today if he hadn't gone to one of those things that I don't know about y'all, but I really am not that comfortable with. And that is those networking things, right? The Federal Bar Association receptions, those things that give you the opportunity to talk to people and get to know what they do. And you know, I can tell you, I am the poster child for the worst reception attender ever. I'm not good at small talk. I'm not good at any of that. But we have to keep remembering that's the way opportunities arise, right? And so we want to keep that in mind. And Brandon also pointed out the fact that he had a conversation with one of your faculty members, Professor Podgore, about what he wanted to do and how he was going to make that happen. Can't say it to you enough. Land yourself in one of the faculty members' offices, sit your little bottom down there and figure out how they can help you, because that's what we're here to do, right? If you get a job, then I got a job, because that makes me feel good about it. So that's another tool you want to think about as you are moving forward. All right. Ngozi?
Hello. I am originally from New York, so I went to school in New York, SUNY Buffalo, and I came down to Florida for vacation, and I ended up staying, taking the bar, interviewing with the Public Defender's Office in Polk County, and I was offered the job during the interview. Throughout my law school career, and even before that, I imagined myself to be a prosecutor. I always took the prosecution side of every argument, and there I was starting my career as a public defender. But it was a wonderful twist of fate, the whole thing, because it gave me a different perspective on the law and criminal justice and how people get to, you know, that side of the versus side in criminal cases. And so from the Public Defender's Office, I stayed there for about 5 years, then went into the county attorney's office, private practice, and then regional counsel was created in 2007. So I applied and I ended up working for the first regional counsel and have been there since 2007. Started this office when we just had a notepad and a pen and no computers, and have enjoyed the experience ever since. We've had a number of Stetson students come through, do internships with us, and they have been just a joy, just a blessing, well-rounded, I was saying earlier that I can spot them in the courtroom. I could spot just from their demeanor, the way they conduct themselves, how they're organized in their thoughts and arguments. And so, yes, I'm always excited to partner with Stetson for any reason.
Can you just describe what regional council is, just for some of us that might not be exactly sure what that office does?
Okay, absolutely. Regional council was started in an attempt to deal with certain cases that were going from, on the criminal side, from the public defender's office to private counsel. It was really supposed to be a money-saving option instead of going right to private counsel. So we were created to, when the public defender's office has a conflict, instead of it going to the private counsel, it would go to regional counsel. If we have a conflict, then those cases will go to the private attorney or court-appointed counsel. But in addition to doing criminal cases, we have also taken on civil indigent defense. So we handle dependency cases as well. We represent the parents whose children, whose families are involved in the DCF system, or the DCF system is involved in their lives anyway. And then we do probate cases as well. So any type of case where the constitutional rights are in jeopardy, the people have a right to counsel, and that triggers our representation.
Right. And Megan, talk to us a little bit about how you ended up at the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Okay, so I started law school always intending to do criminal law. I was a deputy sheriff in Seminole County, so it seemed like a natural fit. But I used law school to kind of branch out and see if that really was just what I had been doing, so where I wanted to be, or if that was really a good fit for me. And I left law school knowing criminal was where I wanted to start. So I started the state attorney's office in Lake County, and I was there for about 4 years and worked my way to a position in the specialized drug unit there. And then my husband moved us out to South Texas, and I was able to get a job with the U.S. Attorney's Office in their civil section. So I actually started with the U.S. Attorney's Office in civil in the Southern District. And then about a year ago said, this is not me. I want to get back to criminal. So I transferred to criminal. And I have been much happier. Things, you know, it's an adversarial system on both sides, but I have to say criminal seems like everyone can at least smile at the end of the day. Civil, I couldn't even schedule depositions easily. So I love criminal work. And so, yeah, I think sometimes your path can be a little bit of a zigzag, but if you know yourself and you at least try different things, you can be well prepared and find something that suits you. You just have to kind of keep moving.
Yeah, love it. So a couple of things Megan said that I want to just highlight also is the idea that it's not always going to be straightforward, right? There's going to be a lot of zigs and zags possibly. And that just because you think you know what you want to do here in law school, it really is a good opportunity to kind of branch out and see if there's other things that you might find as interesting. Let's not forget elder law. I told you guys I'd have to put elder law in there somewhere, right? And so that's a really important thing also. Just to point out something that Ngazi, I know I'm saying it totally wrong and I'm so embarrassed, pointed out also is the idea that you can have a private practice and still be doing some public defender work, right? So still dealing with people that are indigent. So that's a good kind of combination of a couple of different things. Okay, now I wanna really get down and dirty on this one. I wanna ask you guys to describe, and I know different days are gonna look different, but give us a feel for a day in the life of Caitlin. Tell us about what that looks like after you get those two beautiful twins dressed and where they need to be, and you and David get to work.
So a day in my life is going to court. I go to court every day. I normally hit the office around 7:45. On good days, my calendar is already prepped, but on days that there have been a lot going on, I use the time between then and around 8:45 to finish prepping. We're lucky enough in the Fourth that the state attorney's office is connected to the courthouse by a bridge. So I just walk across the bridge to get to my courtroom. And then I'm in court anywhere from 8:30 to 1:30 if we have a really long calendar. On normal calendar days, we're negotiating in side rooms. We are, doing deals, pleading cases, arguing motions, everything in front of the court. My judge is a former longtime prosecutor, so she keeps us on our toes and keeps our division running really well. I will say before the pandemic backlog, you'd probably get back to the office by like 11:30. Now that we're, at least here in the Fourth, we're looking at about a 40% backlog on criminal cases. We're in the courtroom longer, and that reduces the amount of time in the afternoons for you to work your caseload. So that makes it a little challenging right now. But then in the afternoons, I'm doing depositions, I'm meeting with victims, law enforcement, I'm working up cases, doing a lot of supervisory stuff, at least for me, but my lawyers are doing similar, work. I just have to sign everything that they decide. So that's pretty much a day in the life. We have transitioned to having more and more of our work processes by computer. So if I need to pop out to take a child to ballet or walk the dog, I can always work from home in the afternoons. I usually don't because I'm addicted to the office and my home life normally distracts me from my work. But I know of a lot of people who use Zoom depositions or the fact that our work processes are online to work from home in the afternoons with their bunny slippers on.
Megan, talk to me about a day in the life of Megan.
Okay, so we are on like a 2-week grand jury schedule. So usually the beginning of my day is handling new cases and creating indictments on new cases that I may have gotten. And that ranges, you might have 2 to 5 new cases every 2 weeks on top of your current caseload. A typical day also includes proffers or debriefs. That's probably at least 1 to 2 a day.
Megan, tell us what a proffer or a debrief is.
Okay, so once a defendant is indicted, they have an opportunity to provide what we call in the federal system a debrief. On the state side, we used to call them proffers, but they're able to come in and provide a truthful and full account of their involvement in the criminal, in their offense of conviction or in a larger criminal enterprise. And if that information is truthful, they can get reduced sentences. In the federal system, those are called safety valve or substantial assistance. And so it behooves them to have that debrief if they want to provide information. Say they know their source of supply that was giving them the drugs that they were caught with. But it's all in an effort for them to reduce their sentence. And typically those are done after they've pled to their charges. So those are often on the federal side led by the investigators. So we work very closely with the federal agencies. In my area, that's Homeland Security, DEA. We work a lot with Border Patrol and US Customs. And so they're usually in and out of our office. Now, one of the positive influences of the pandemic on my schedule is we have a lot of extra flexibility now. We can start and end our day and flex hours out. We can telework when we want, as long as that doesn't disrupt our court schedule. And on the federal side, I'd say we're in court at least 2 to 3 times a week, but that can vary depending on your cases. And we cover for each other quite a bit. So if you only have like pleas on one day, usually a colleague will come in and take all of those, so 5 attorneys don't have to be there. So, but usually court is on a typical day. And it's really just, you also have the opportunity to work ongoing investigations. So if you are working with an agent on something, there's usually things that you can have them do, things to review, meetings to have to further that investigation with them. So we do a lot of research. We don't do a whole lot of writing, but when we do, it really helps to have that civil background or to have taken like some of those civil courses in law school. So I do want to plug, even if you think you're going to be in criminal, it's always a good idea to kind of supplement that with writing courses. Or I took the pretrial services course, I think. And that has been phenomenal for my practice. I feel much more comfortable with the writing that some of my colleagues maybe don't. And so that's pretty much a typical day.
So I just want to put a pin in that for Megan. And that is, like, I don't believe you should graduate from Stetson College of Law without taking pretrial, regardless of which side you think you're going to go on. I think pretrial really is that class that kind of combines a whole bunch of different skills that you need, including writing. So you can kind of contrast Megan, who's in the federal system, with Caitlin, who's in the state system. With one of the big differences, the amount of time you're actually in court. And I experienced the same thing, as an AUSA, a lot less time in court, but time in the grand jury, time with investigators. When you're in the state system, you're in court, as Caitlin said, most days, 4 or 5 hours. All right, so let's look at some of the defense side. Ngozi, can you tell me a little bit about your day? What does your day look like?
Okay, my typical day, first of all, I shifted from doing criminal defense felonies to doing dependency work, and that was because there was a change in our staffing. But when I was doing criminal work, my typical day would be to get to court about 8:30. Or before 8:30 actually, because I'd go in to see clients that are in custody, just pop in and see them right before court began. Court starts about 8:30. I'd typically be there until about 11:30 or so. And just because of the makeup of our office, we aren't assigned to just one courtroom. So we go from courtroom to courtroom, just like the private attorneys do. And when I get back to the office, then it is preparation towards trial. I'm not an attorney that waives speedy trial. So, and that keeps me on my toes and my clients as well. So I typically get back to the office and I am doing discovery prep, setting depositions, calling witnesses that my clients have said were witnesses, check and see whether they are truly witnesses, scheduling time to see my clients in the jail. And the day ends that way as well, unless I have afternoon hearings. So with our criminal attorneys, that's somewhat of their schedule as well. Of course, everybody has their own personal style as well and how they manage their cases and their clients. But to, just as Megan said, also as far as supplementing your education, I found that in working with interns and even seeing the more seasoned attorneys in the courtroom, that it is very beneficial to you if you do some trial advocacy, get comfortable in the courtroom, even if you're not even planning on being in the courtroom, because when you are, you want to look the part. Sort of, fake it until you can make it. So you want to get into the courtroom and know your way around. It's a good idea to get to know the staff in the courtroom also, because some of them can really help you out too, so that you don't, so that when you are struggling, they can give you a little bit of a lifeline as well.
Just for a second, can you tell us a little bit about what do you mean by dependency, in case that might be something that somebody might be interested in? Yes,
for dependency, those are cases where the Department of Children and Families have become involved in the lives of the children and the parents due to some allegation of harm or neglect, abuse of the children. So we represent the parents in those cases. Sometimes the parent is seen as the cause for the DCF to be in the lives of the family, and sometimes they're just basically brought into the case because of the actions of the other parents. A typical dependency case may be an instance where a parent has custody of their kids and has substance abuse issues. And those issues are affecting, of course, their ability to raise and parent and protect their children. And so if there is a report that comes in, or DCF is notified of an issue, a safety concern with the children, they'll come in through the sheriff's office, CPI division, Child Protective Investigation Division, and investigate the allegations. The allegations are typically made anonymously through 211. And if they find that there is concern for the children's well-being, they will either do a safety plan to see if they can leave the children in the home, which is the least restrictive means of dealing with the problem, or they may remove the child, place the child with the other non-offending parent, another relative, or a friend, or ultimately place them in foster care in a family setting or foster care in a group home.
All right. So good point, right? I'll just tell you a funny story. Maybe it's not that funny. That I went to law school to do dependency. Ask me how many dependency cases I've done in my life. 0, right? So you may come thinking you're going to do one thing and you end up not doing that at all. The other thing I want to point out is that I believe, if this is still true, the state attorney's office in Pinellas also has a placement in dependency. So that if that's something that you think, oh, I might want to do that, you can also do that through the state attorney's office. Yes, ma'am. Clinic. All right. So the public defender's office also has a juvenile/dependency placement, if that's something of interest. All right. So let's talk to our 2 private guys. Brandon, talk to us a little bit about a day in your life.
So before I do that, I want to say, so white collar kind of has a general term to it, but it helps to knowing how my day goes to know what that is. So a lot of the cases, not all of them, but a lot of the ones I do are cases in which people have been charged with healthcare fraud related to healthcare services, bank fraud, securities fraud related to stock trading, and then sort of sophisticated drug enterprises, as well as regulatory cases. I've got a case now I'm working on that involves endangered species. So my day kind of happens really in 2 types of days. One is sort of the day Megan described, where my sleeves are rolled up and I'm meeting with my investigators because I don't have the right to depositions doing federal criminal defense work. I see Megan smiling. So it's one of those situations where I've got to really get into the weeds of a case by going out and talking to witnesses or going out and talking to my experts and formulating a defense. And then there's, my sleeves are also rolled up when I go to trial. I do take cases to trial and or have pretrial hearings in federal court on substantive motions practice. Then there are days, if not weeks, sometimes months, where I do not leave my office because I am doing work that involves intensive document review, whether it's healthcare billing or communications, loan applications, anything across the board, where I'm sitting with basically a limitless amount of paper or files to go through. And that is my day from start to finish. And, some people would say that is the most boring job somebody could have, but it has taught me how to frame a defense, because if you don't know the documents that are going to be used by the government at trial, then you might as well just not prepare. There's no better way to defend a client and to be able to advise a client, because although I do enjoy going to trial, I have gone to trial. Not every case deserves to go to trial or should go to trial. And so I can only advise my client if I know the universe of evidence out there the government's going to have. And so that's the most of my day. I will say at the end of my day, more often than not, because of how much time I spend absorbing information, I take about an hour after my day, whether it's running or meditation or yoga, to clear my mind, because there's, you know, we'll talk about this a little later, but there's no other way to get through this job. Just the intensity of it is to have those outlets.
All right, thank you. Lee, talk to us a little bit about the day in the life of Lee.
Well, I'm in court every day of my life, and I'm probably going to die in a courtroom, but I've made peace with that. So for me, I have cases primarily in like Pinellas, Pasco, Hillsborough, but we have cases spread across 8 counties. So I'm driving constantly, and for me, there's still Zoom options in some counties, but it's better for me to be in there, because a big part of what I do is I go in and, like Megan's up there, I schmooze, beg, plead, knuckle down, in that courtroom on that day with the state attorneys or the prosecutors, the federal prosecutors, whatever it takes to try and get resolutions or good outcomes for my clients. And that's easier in person. It just is. But I think there might be 1 day a month or 2 days a month where I'm not in court, and it's because I forced my associates to go for me. And it's hard. I'm a private attorney. I'm paid by my clients. I don't get anyone appointed to me. I don't have any of those dynamics. Neither does Brandon, obviously. So, I've got to, they want you, they retain you, they want you there. And that's a big part of what we have to deal with. It's hard to push that off on somebody else when they're expecting you. And so every day I'm in court, that the mornings are always that. If I'm in trial, that's a different animal. Those are very intensive days, and they're long, and sometimes they're multiple days. But I do every type of crime. So I have, I think, 4 or 5 murders right now. We have sexual, lewd and lascivious sexual battery allegations right now, all the way down to, I don't know how many DUIs. Okay. So a big part of what we do is depositions, meeting with clients, going through discovery, signing up new cases, because a big part of what I have to do is meet with referrals, meet with new intakes, and get them locked in. And those are our afternoons, right? So deposition, sometimes more court if there's an afternoon calendar, and keeping the clients informed, and being a lawyer. It's hard for what I do because I run our firm, I run our criminal practice, and love our marketing. So you got to do all of that and be a lawyer, and it becomes overwhelming. We will talk about quality of life. I finally gotten to one, like I have a quality of life. When I first started my firm, there were many years where I did not have any. And those are sacrifices that we make at certain terms. But anyway, so what I do is heavily courtroom intensive. But I like that, so I can't complain that much.
So Brendan kind of talked a little bit about this, but I want to just kind of throw it out there. Life balance, quality of life, surviving. Talk to me, Megan. What do you do to make sure that you keep some sort of life balance with, as Brandon pointed out, this is a very, very engaging and sometimes very stressful life. So what do you do to keep a balance and a really fun life? Just so I throw that out there too. Go ahead.
So I think you have to be okay with having a to-do list that is not completed at the end of the day, right? You're always going to have something to do, but you have to have that end time. Like your schedule has to stop at a certain time, and you have to accept that to-do list will be there tomorrow, and you'll start, and you triage it, right? You start with the most important thing. And I think for me, that has helped, being organized and accepting that I will not get everything I want done in a day. What I talked about earlier, one of the benefits or one of the positive impacts of the pandemic has been a more flexible schedule, which I think also has affected quality of life, because now your computer is always at home. As soon as I wake up, I log in and I get the kids ready for school. And so that has been a little harder actually after the pandemic, is turning it on and off. So, but I think that's one important thing, accepting you're never going to get everything done, and just turning it off. The nice thing about government work is you really can stop at 5 if you're efficient during the day. And I have always found that to be so, whether at the state or here at the federal level. I work my 40 hours a week or 80 hours every 2 weeks, and I get to turn it off on the weekends. I don't usually have to carry that mental load into the weekend. that was important to me when I was thinking about what I wanted to do. And so I would say that you can have that working for the government. I mean, that's a give and take, right? There are downsides to that being what you want, but that was something I knew I wanted, and I have been able to successfully achieve that. But like Lee said, trial, and I'm sure Caitlin knows now, like trial time, that is not the case. You are on and mentally have that load for a lot longer than an 8-hour day.
Caitlin, you want to follow up with that? Life balance.
Yes, life balance are words that exist. It does not probably describe my week this week. I had an attempted murder trial 2 weeks ago, and I'm in trial this week. Especially with murder trials, I mean, I can do a sale of cocaine at this point in my career with my eyes closed, but when I have deceased victims, family in the front row, these trials are never easy. And I spent my whole weekend in the office this last weekend. I got home last night late, but in enough time to kiss the kids goodnight. And I was at the office by 6 this morning. So there are heavy weeks. But before that, the weeks that I'm not in trial, I can make it work almost 8 to 5. I find as a supervisor that it adds an additional load on, but day to day, it's definitely doable. You just have to set your boundaries. And like Megan was saying, be comfortable with the fact that you will never reach the end of your to-do list unless you purposefully leave things off of it. So if your to-do list is like everything you're going to try and get done in a week, by the end of the day, Monday, that thing has morphed, changed, additions, subtractions, things are always going to be flying at you. It's a very busy practice, I find. For those of us on the state side, we always have more cases. And I think on the defense side, you always have more questions from clients and more clients. So I find it's doable. You have to have a good support system and know what you're getting into. I've certainly seen ebbs and flows in my practice. So when I started as a county court attorney, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So it took me a while I would work one weekend over the weekend, every weekend, just to catch up and still kind of figuring things out. And then once I got comfortable with that, they moved me up to felony. And it took me a while to get comfortable there. And then I was doing sex crimes for a couple of years. When I had my kids, that was kind of a forced stop and really kind of changed the way I prioritize things and what I consider work-life balance. But one of the things that I love with working for the state is with enough advance notice, I can do anything. For instance, I told my judge in a homicide trial that I had a speaking engagement from noon to 1, and here I am. And I consider that part of kind of a work-life balance. This is my choice to be here talking to you guys, and I've made work kind of conform to it. I also normally, unless I'm picking a jury, leave Mondays at 3:45 to go pick up my daughter from school to take her to ballet. And so that's something that my lawyers know that that's what I'm doing. My judge knows I don't set hearings. Most of my regular defense attorneys know that I'm unavailable after 3:30 on Monday afternoons, and everybody's fine with it. So it just takes a little bit of advance notice, like Megan was saying, some organization. And
Oh, I think we lost her. All right. All right. Lee, Lee, talk to me about work-life balance. Haha.
Well, I agree with what I heard. I mean, when I worked for the state attorney's office, I had a great life. I worked out like 4 or 5 days a week. I had a lot of fun. We did the happy hours. You know, you really bond as state attorneys, which is one of the best parts about being, you know, you stay friends with these people because you're in the trenches for 3 years. having a very different lifestyle than most people professionally, and it's great. Even when I went to work for the firm that I worked for 1 year, I had a very nice quality of life, right? I 50 hours a week tops. Trials, again, I'm in trial every 2 to 3 months. Other than COVID, I go because I do I have high volume cases, and it allows me to do that. But at the end of the day, when I started my own firm, I've had 4 years, maybe 5 years of really no quality balance. I went from like 185 pounds to 215 pounds. I was drinking arguably too much. I think it's an easy argument to make that. I was really unhealthy because every weekend I'd go into the office. I had to stay on top of things because while I'm doing that, I'm building an infrastructure and building a support team to help me versus just doing it all. And it's really hard when you don't have that and you don't know what you're doing. And I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, so it probably took me a few more hits than it should have to get there. But what really forced my hand was having children, because my wife had been supportive up to a point, but I wanted kids, and she's like, okay, but you're going to be here. And that really forced me to step back. You can always make more money. Okay. You can keep working and keep bringing it in, trying and make that kind of, lifestyle, but you will die young. I mean, it's just going to happen. You have to let go a little bit. You have to bring in people that can help you, that can support you. And, I'd say for the last 4 years or so, I've had a very nice quality of life. I do 50-ish, maybe probably 40-ish hours a week. I still do phone calls at night. I'll do phone calls on the weekends for new clients or things that are going on. That's easy compared to what I was doing. And that's a decision you have to make, right? If you want to step out and take that attempt at having your own thing, your quality of life is going to be very difficult for a while, but that's okay, right? I've gotten to a point where I'm happy, and I'm happy with everything I've done, but I've gone a different route than many. So that's my input.
Brandon, anything you want to add to how
Yeah.
you balance that life of yours?
Yeah, so two things. One is making the right choice of where you go. There are plenty of options to practice criminal law. I think all of us have different experiences, and there are many ways to get there. But you likely talked about in building an infrastructure. If you're going to go the private criminal defense route, you should find a place and vet a place out that will support that balance. The saying goes that bad stuff flows downstream, right? And so you don't want to be the person at the bottom of the stream taking all of that in, just simply because not of the density of the work, which we'll talk about in a second, but also just because of the structure of the firm that you've gone to. And so make sure that when you're considering what kind of quality work-life balance you want to have, and if you want to throw yourself into work for 80 hours a week, that's perfectly fine too. No one should be judging that. But it should be somewhere where you're going to be held up and grow as an attorney. Like Lee and I were talking before this about him making excellent choices of who he chose to bring in his roof to take those cases with him. And that's important because he holds those people up and he gives them marketing opportunities as well to grow as attorneys. The second part is the density of the work. Prosecutor or defense attorney, you can't turn it off when you go home. There's times you have to. There's times you do not have a choice, and it's good for your mental health. But you need to find an outlet in doing that. And it's like Caitlin said about scheduling those certain times with her daughter to turn off her brain and focus on that, or everyone talked about with their kids. You've got to have that outlet, kids or not, because the weight of this work can be crushing for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be. There's good work on both sides of this.
So I know we're getting down. Any questions before I ask kind of our last question? All right. Caitlin, I know you're looking at a clock, so I just want to ask you, tell us a story of a case or something that happened that you said at the end of it, yeah, that's why I do this.
So Bobby previewed this question for us, and I was trying to think of really the answer, but I really think it's a case that I tried last summer. It was my very first chair on a first-degree murder. So we call it the triple first. It was a case here in the Fourth. Homicide lawyers respond out to homicide scenes with our law enforcement partners. So I responded out to a scene of a fatal stabbing where a innocent victim, and sometimes as prosecutors, we don't get true innocent victims, but in this case, I had one. And I stood in her living room, and my lead detective at the time was standing there, and he made her a promise that we would find who did this to her. It was one of those weird moments where we try not to promise things to live people because the criminal justice system, sometimes it is a roll of the dice. One of my favorite sayings is that juries are forces of darkness sometimes, because they will do things that you do not expect them to do. Jury nullification is a real problem sometimes, but I watched that detective make that promise and lived with the case for 2 years. I took it through grand jury and indicted and took it through trial. And after the verdict, when everything was done, when I was thrilled because he was convicted, guilty as charged, I was with the family in the side room, much like the one I'm currently sitting in. And they were just so thankful. And, you know, we hugged and everything. And I had been talking to these ladies for 2 years about their mother. But I guess one of the reasons that I was like, yeah, this is it, is they were on their way to her grave to tell her what a great job I did. And it was just like, oh, geez, we have, you know, fulfilled the promise that we made when we were in her home. And it is not every day that you get a good result in trial. It is not every day that things go your way. My current judge has ruled that I'm not allowed to refer to my homicide victim as a victim. And defense counsel in the trial that I'm currently in keeps interrupting me every time I call this gentleman a victim. So things don't always go your way, but there is true benefit, true impact, lives measured. And, you know, the ladies that I talked to in the side room that day were not direct victims of a crime. They were not witnesses of mine. They were not law enforcement partners. They were members of my community. And they were so thankful that I had been the person speaking for their loved one in court. So no matter how many weekends, hours, lost sleep, I am proud to do the work that I do.
Lee?
I've had, I want to say 7 or 8 jury trials that were death penalty or mandatory life. Might have been 6 or 7 that were mine that I've done. And I've been fortunate enough, we've only lost 1 out of the 8. And it was one that I jumped on to help a friend who had never done one and shouldn't have been in that situation. When you win those, okay, I can tell you unequivocally, you're bonded. So you can go to trial on cases where you know someone's guilty or you know they did it, and that's fine. And you're going to do your best, and you're going to bust your ass, right? Because that's your job. That's what you signed up for. But when you believe someone is innocent, you believe they didn't do it, and they're facing the rest of their life in prison, right? Dying in a jail or a prison somewhere. It is terrifying. There is nothing scarier than that in this world. I've done scary things, and that scares me more than anything else because it's on you, right? And you know, these people that I've defended in these scenarios, you form a bond. I'm friends with every single one. I go to birthday parties. I go to one of their barbershops, get my haircut regularly. Like, you know, I talk to others on the phone just to catch up and say hi. Those are those moments where you can say you genuinely saved someone's life. And maybe someone else could have done it too. Maybe they couldn't have, but you did. And I'll die happy knowing that I helped those people in those scenarios, because I believe I saved innocent people from what could have been a terrible outcome.
Megan, story of one time where you said, yeah, this is why I do this. Uh-oh, you're frozen. Brandon, I'm going to skip over to you real fast.
I'll keep mine short. So mine is that I represented a number of people with my firm who were seeking clemency from President Obama during the Clemency Project in 2014 through 2016, which was for nonviolent drug offenders. And we got 44 of them clemency. A number of those people, more than a dozen, were going to die in prison because of antiquated laws that should not apply to them if they were convicted today. And so I knew that I was in the right area and that there was good work to be done here. When I got to call them, they were just called to an office, a warden's office or counselor's office, and they thought they were in trouble. Every single one of them thought that they were in trouble. And we got to tell each of them that they were going home.
Wow. Wow. Megan?
Sorry. So just that, the simplest case can turn into be something crazy. It was a simple human smuggling case. She made claims that her daughter had been kidnapped and she was forced by the cartel to bring this person across. We had to investigate the kidnapping. It turns out there was no kidnapping. She had made it up. And then I've also had a lot of opportunities to do some really fun things working for the federal government. I took a speedboat tour of the border on the Rio Grande River. And so that was a really fun day. It's maybe not so rewarding as much as a nice perk that I got to participate in. So those are just really unique things that I've been able to do.
All right. Joanne, are you telling us we're out of time? I have like 5 or 6 more questions.
I know, and I am. This was an ambitious agenda, and we all knew that going in. These are fantastic speakers and alums, and but unfortunately, we are running short on time. For those who have to go to class or maybe back to court, feel free to do that. But if anyone wants to stay and chat, I think our panelists may have a minute or 2 left. So if you have one final question.
Any questions? Nope. All right. I just want to thank you guys again for your generosity in coming and telling us and talking to us and helping us to know. But I am going to ask one final question. If I knew then what I know now, what would I have done different? Lee, one thing.
One thing, I would highly advise everyone to law school. I wouldn't take it as seriously as some people did. I didn't. That was great. But the first job you take is important. And I think you need to take that seriously. You need to treat that like that is your real introduction to the legal world. Take it seriously, learn, meet people, network, and expose yourself. Because that first job, that's what people really look at going forward. And whether your career is vertical or horizontal or whatever, spiral, that was a great analogy. It is. Don't take it for granted and earn credit and respect for what you are and what you can do.
All right. Brandon, if I knew now what I knew then, or I knew then what I know now.
Starting out, even in your clinics, there's always a bigger fish. You're going to have run-ins with opposing counsel on cases that may seem like the biggest case in the world to you. It's not. Don't let it get under your skin.
Megan.
I second Lee's. Try not to take law school too. Have fun, enjoy trying new things, challenge yourself there, because there's really nothing on the line. Like once you're done with law school and you have your first job, that's when, people are essentially grading you, right? And you're trying to learn and just try whatever you can new and don't, I felt like I used law school to really reach out to people. I randomly, I got my first job over the summer by just sending a thank you letter to someone who had come in, an attorney who had presented in a class, not even my class, but a classmate's. And that was how I got my first job. You just put yourself out there. And if someone offers to help you or take you to coffee or anything, take advantage of that. Even if they don't practice what you're interested in, you never know who they know. You never know what you'll learn from them. So I would just say, take advantage of every chance to do that. Don't ever turn an offer for help down.
Never let pride or fear dictate anything. Always jump. Megan's exactly right.
Yeah. All right, Joanne, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you, Professor Flowers, as well for moderating this conversation. And stay tuned tomorrow for JD Careers, and we will end Campus to Career on a high note with tax law. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon, everyone.